You may be seated. Oh, good afternoon. My name is Reagan Harper, and I have had the privilege of having Evyn as my senior assistant this year in fine arts. And we just had a really great year together. I'm very thankful for her. Joining me on the panel today is the newest member of the NCA family here, Val.
Love her.
And Ron Miller. And if y'all would, just let me lead us in prayer for a moment, and then we'll get started. Father, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for Evyn. And I pray that you would give her clarity of thought, that she would be able to share her heart and the important things that you have placed upon it, and the vision that you have given her. And I pray that we would honor her hard work and the questions that we ask and the conversations that we have with her today, and that everybody here will be edified as a result. We love you, and we thank you for this time together. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I am not qualified for this. Not my thesis, but this is how I felt my first time working Brave Week at Deer Creek Camp. Brave Week is an adaptive week at camp in which you work one-on-one with a special needs camper. If you know me, you'll most likely know that I have a heart for the special needs community. And after working Brave Week for the last 5 years, my love for them has grown immensely. The key word in my story is love. When the opportunity arose to work with this group for the first time, I had a buddy, and her name was Alex. Alex changed my perspective on a lot of things. During that first week, it happened to be my birthday. I had always wanted to have a camp birthday, but my weeks at camp never fell on it. But it was even better because Alex was my buddy. It started out as just a normal day at camp, and then by lunchtime, everybody sang to me. Alex told me happy birthday for the first time, and then later in the day, a few more people would tell me happy birthday, and Alex was surprised every single time. By the end of the day, I think Alex told me happy birthday probably 30 times. She is joyful and she's happy, and she shows the love of the Lord to everybody she meets. Alex's surprise, love, and celebration of me caused me to ask myself a couple of questions. First, how can I celebrate Alex or the special needs community in general in the same way? And secondly, why do so many people react to this type of behavior with such negativity and annoyance? In asking myself these questions, I have become aware of the lack of love and desire to serve this population in our society, and to an extent our church as well. But before we can answer these questions, we need to look at it from a few different angles. Our culture and church's perspective, God's perspective of his image bearers, and lastly, how to change our own perspective from seeing the disabled as less than to how God sees us as equal. Now, in order to frame this discussion, we need to define a few important terms. Many people may not know what the term disability actually means. To have a disability is to have a mental, physical, cognitive, or developmental condition that impairs or interferes with or limits a person's ability to engage in certain tasks or actions or participate in typical daily activities and interactions. A few common disabilities you might have heard of are autism, Down syndrome, and ADHD. According to the CDC, Down syndrome is a condition in which a person is born with an extra chromosome. Chromosomes, or babies born with Down syndrome, have an extra copy of chromosome 21. This can result in mental and physical disabilities. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. But because autism is a spectrum disorder, everybody with autism has a distinct set of strengths and challenges. And lastly, ADHD is one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders of childhood. It is normally first diagnosed in childhood and often lasts into adulthood. Children with ADHD might have trouble paying attention, controlling impulsive behaviors, or can be hyperactive. One way to categorize these people with disabilities is by referring to them as the special needs community. Not only does this encompass the aforementioned disabilities, but also their families, friends, and communities affected. The World Health Organization states that an estimated 1.3 billion people in the world experience disability. This represents 16%, or 1 in 6 people with a disability. As a society, our default perspective is to at best deal with disabled people, and at worst embrace the ideas expressed in the book Flatland by Edwin Abbott. During your junior year in geometry, you read this romance novel in which you see that the idea that being imperfect is not something you should be satisfied with. If you are in irregular shape, you are either imprisoned, sent to therapy to be fixed, or destroyed at birth. There's a quote which says, "An infant whose angle deviates by half a degree from the correct angularity is summarily destroyed at birth." Another statistic I have found that resonates with many people in our society is the belief that it is immoral to give birth to a child knowing they would have a disability. According to a CBS story, one medical practitioner says that by aborting babies with disabilities, we will be preventing suffering for the families or person affected. Although prenatal testing can be helpful, it can also be harmful in the ways that many women decide to take the life of their unborn child because they're pressured by the medical community. According to the Washington Post, many years ago, a medical student shared that his professor told students they had the responsibility to encourage parents to terminate babies who receive a prenatal Down syndrome diagnosis. It is an estimated 60 to 90% of children diagnosed with Down syndrome that are aborted each year in the U.S., compared to 18% of all pregnancies ending in abortion. Many use the excuse that killing a disabled infant is not morally equivalent to killing a person. However, recent research contradicts this assumption by confirming that people with Down syndrome have an exceedingly high level of satisfaction in their lives, and their family members share the same satisfaction. Now, having examined our culture's perspective on these issues, we need to look at the churches. Recently, the American Worldview Inventory states that 29% of Americans who consider themselves religious agree that human life is sacred. This number is down 10 points from 2020. What is more shocking is the trend amongst those who claim to be born again. Compared to 2020, those who believe that human life is sacred plummeted 12 points, from 60% to only 48%, my bad. This moral confusion and lack of understanding about the role of suffering and what makes one fundamentally human is contributing to the number of women who are going straight from the abortion pew, straight from the church pew to the abortion clinic. Sadly, there's little difference in the church's perspective on the inclusion of the special needs community. Now, having examined our society and church's perspective, as believers, we need to examine our own. In 1983, Johnny Erickson Tada wrote, 10% of our population is severely disabled. So theoretically, on any given Sunday, a pastor ought to look out over his congregation and see 10% that are severely limited, the blind or the deaf or people in wheelchairs. But we can deduce from our own experience in worship week after week that little has changed since Joni wrote this 41 years ago. Michael S. Bedas, a father of a severely disabled daughter and a theologian, wrote, "Although our church would affirm that our doors are open to the disabled members in our communities and our congregations, in many ways the disabled people and their families sense a lack of welcome." In her book, The Disabled God, Nancy Eislin offers a helpful illustration. The history of the church's interaction with the disabled is at best an ambiguous one. For many disabled persons, the church has been a city on a hill, physically inaccessible and socially inhospitable. Michael Beda's personal experience confirms this reality. In his book, Disability and the Gospel, he writes, "We have been to churches where we have had to carry Jessica's wheelchair over obstacles or up steps to get inside. We have experienced the quiet stares that betray an unspoken discomfort with our presence. Many years ago when she was young, we heard nursery workers and Sunday school teachers actually say, 'You're not going to leave her with us, are you?' And of course, well-intentioned but theologically obtuse believers have asked us if we have confessed the sin in our lives that must be surely responsible for her afflictions. With attitudes like this, is it any wonder that the special needs community feel displaced by both our society and our church? Now imagine this. You walk into a room full of people and you're immediately greeted by somebody who comments on how beautiful or handsome you are. Or after a long conversation with that same person, they mention how much they enjoy conversing with you and getting to know you better. Your natural tendency is to be encouraged or edified by such kind words. Now imagine the same scenario in which the exact opposite message is communicated, either directly or indirectly by just being completely ignored. One's initial response might be sadness or self-consciousness. Now imagine the same scenario in one way or another happens to you every single day. In the book I read from my thesis entitled On the Spectrum by Daniel Bowman Jr., Mr. Bowman conducted an interview with an autistic college student named Matt. Matt recalled the bullying he experienced when he was younger and the heavy burden of carrying that emotional baggage. The baggage of unforgiveness, the baggage of self-hatred. It's really hard to love yourself when a society has told you that you're unlovable. Matt also notes that his perspective changed whenever he decided to see himself through God's eyes, stating that God can work through our autism. He can use it to meet the basic need for connection. I think bonding in a community can help with that. This is a common experience for people with disabilities. When people make fun of them or talk negatively to them, it makes them feel unwanted, dehumanized, and unseen, even if they cannot communicate it. But God sees. In Genesis 1:26 and 27, God says, "Let us make man in our image and according to our likeness." So God created man. So in the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Do you know how God sees people with special needs? It's actually pretty simple. People with special needs are seen as humans and God's image bearers. God does not only say that neurotypical people are made in his image. To be made in the image of God does not necessarily mean that we look like God or that we think like God, but to be made in the image of God means that we are fashioned to resemble and represent God on this earth. But because of the fall, we are all broken mirrors that reflect the image of God. To put this back in flatland terms, we all deviate from our angles. But the good news is that those who are all in Christ will be perfected. God's perspective is unique in that he sees eternally what we are and what we will be when Christ comes back and his work in making all things new is complete. In The Way to Glory by C.S. Lewis, he reminds us that it's a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses. To remember that the dullest, most uninteresting person you might meet might one day be a creature in which if you saw now, you'd be strongly tempted to worship. There are no ordinary people. You've never talked to a mere mortal. Simply put, if we refuse to recognize the special needs community as God's image bearers, we are dishonoring God. Now, even if I've convinced our secular society that the special needs quality of life is higher than the statistics show, and if I've convinced the church that we are dishonoring the image of God by neglecting the special needs members in our communities, both sides might reply, the problem is just too overwhelming. The problem might be too expensive, or even it takes too much time or specialized training. Although these arguments are realities, I'm just brought back to what I learned with Alex. First and foremost, I needed to be equipped with love. God will bring you patience and love and whatever else you need in that moment if you just trust in his plan for you. Psalm 127:3 says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is a reward." Every child, special needs or not, deserves to be loved and cared for because they are human. In childcare and in parenting, love and patience play an integral part in a child's development. In fact, the growth and development of children depend heavily on the love and support they receive from their communities and loved ones. Now, after hearing all this, you might be wondering, Evyn, what can we do or how can we fix this? I interviewed Miss Cindy Tees, the founder of Camp Barnabas, who also helped start Deer Creek Camp's Brave Week. In the interview, she said, "We just need to remember that the people in this community are people first. They may have a disability, but that does not define them. Think about somebody without that disability and treat them in the same way. You can also look at what people of that typical age or developmental age are doing and treat them in the same way. Many people tend to get uncomfortable and walk around them like they're a piece of furniture." And she ended and said, "One of the reasons campers love Barnabas so much is because they feel included in a part of the world, whereas at home they often feel excluded and are treated differently." Those things they feel are very evident in our society. It's impossible for us to change everybody's mind to think like Jesus does on this subject, but we can make minor changes to help us reach this goal for those who are willing. Everybody has different strengths, including the special needs community. Figure out what they are good at and put them in a spot where they can flourish. In a church setting, that might be letting them run a camera or working on a welcoming team. When having a special needs child or adult, you have so many responsibilities, like taking care of them for yours or their whole life. This can cause major mental and physical strain and tiredness, not to mention all the stresses that come with the financial side of things, like having to find babysitters willing to help and paying for medical bills. Seeing this translates into suffering for these families. Offering a helping hand is just one way we can show our love for them. I know this seems so simple, it's just something that's not done. Including our special needs friends makes a world of difference to them and makes them feel like they are a part of the world. Now that we have seen how to change our own perspective from seeing the disabled as less than to how God sees us as equal, and you still have a sense that full inclusion of the special needs members within our congregations and communities are an unreachable goal, let me leave you with one final thought. We should all view ourselves as temporarily able-bodied. The Apostle Paul reminds us in 2 Corinthians 4:16 and 17, that though we are outwardly wasting away, inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. To break this down, it is likely that we will all face disability at some point in our lives. Think about how you will want to be included in your congregations when you're no longer able-bodied. Thank you.
Let's hear it. Okay. So good. All right, so we'll start with the traditional question. What are your plans for next year? What are you going to be doing?
I'm going to go to UTPB.
All right.
And I'm going to study marketing. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, very good. When did you first know that your heart was drawn towards this kind of ministry? Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Okay, so it was, so I was at camp, and it was my, normal, regular 2 weeks of camp that I go. And one of the owners of camp, her name's Mama Bear. Mama Bear was like, hey, I think you would be really good at this. Would you come and work this week? And I was like, yeah, let me talk to my parents. And so I came and worked that week, and I don't know, it's really cool to see how much of an impact they can make in your life and you can make in their life in just 1 week.
What do you think, just from that first experience, was maybe a way that you benefited? Like you said, that they impacted your life, maybe in unexpected ways.
I had to learn a lot of patience. I'm not a super patient person. Whenever I think of something, I want it then. And having to help, we were in the shower houses with the girls, and we were just helping them through the day. We had to help them change their clothes, and it's like, can you just hurry up? And it's like, I realized that, that's not something that I can just be like, just hurry up. I mean, they have their things, I have my things that take me time. They have their things that take them time, so I had to learn how to be patient. Yeah. So.
All right. So you mentioned a little bit, you had interviewed Miss Cindy Tees for this thesis. Can you give us a little bit of the backstory on kind of how Camp Barnabas came about, and then how she helped with Deer Creek Camp?
Yeah, so Miss Tees was a counselor, or she was a nurse at Kanakuk camps. And there was this one little girl that just kept coming to the nurse and coming to the nurse and coming to the nurse, asking for ibuprofen. And she was like, my leg hurts, my leg hurts, my leg hurts. And she was like, well, her mom said that they took her to the doctor, and all they kept saying is, oh, it's growing pains, it's growing pains. And she said, where is it hurting you? And she kept pointing at her thigh. She said, it feels like a toothache in my thigh. And so she was like, well, the only reason that you would be feeling that kind of pain is you either have a fracture or you have a tumor pushing down on your leg. And so she said, Mrs. Tees took, at the end of camp, made it a point to go and talk to her mom, and was like, hey, I think you need to get her checked out again. Come to find out, a week or two later, the same mom calls and says, yeah, my daughter has cancer, and she's getting her leg amputated. So her first reaction, the little girl's reaction, was, I'm not going to be able to go to camp anymore. And that was her favorite thing. She loved camp. And Mrs. Tees was like, don't even worry about it. We're going to make it accessible for you. You'll be in a wheelchair, so we'll build ramps, and we'll do this and that. And she ended up coming to camp, and then she was just not having a great time. And then Mrs. Tees was like, how could we make it better? She was like, it would be so much better if there was a camp where it was only cancer kids. Everybody who's on chemo, everybody has no hair, and they all understand. Because I feel like I'm sticking out like a sore thumb. And so at first, they started a week of like cancer kids camp at Kanakuk. And then it ended up just like not working out. And then there was this man who insisted on coming to help them with the Cancer Kids Week. And he just, like, Mrs. Tees was like, we don't have room for you. We don't have room for you. And he was like, yes, I'm coming. I don't care what you say. I'm coming. So this man comes and helps them at the Cancer Kids Week. And Mrs. Tees and her husband had gone and looked at a plot of land. And Mrs. T's husband talked to that man who insisted on coming. And that man went and put a down payment on the piece of land that they had looked at because they didn't have the money to. And so they were just trusting in God's plan that because they had this heart to create a camp for kids with cancer, which then turned into a special needs camp. But they had the heart to do that, and they were just trusting that the Lord would bring them the funds. So
it's awesome. It's amazing to hear, kind of like Ms. Henson was saying earlier, about how God will just work through people in miraculous and quiet ways too, but he always puts his plan together, and it's awesome. So I have just one more quick question before I pass it on to Ms. Martiz. You said in your speech and in your thesis that a key word in your story is love. And I also read about another keyword, time, too. I just wanted to find out if you agree or disagree with this, and if you've seen this dynamic at work in the work that you've done. It says, once you take the time to be amongst people with disabilities, the rest just happens. And then often it happens to you. 80% of successful ministry is just showing up. Mm-hmm. Would you agree, disagree?
Yes, I would agree. I think that, like, in my own experience, I don't think that my heart was in the right place whenever I was there, like whenever I first went. And so it was like, I have to go do this because I told Mama Bear I would. And it's like, but then once I was there, like, my heart completely changed. And now I couldn't imagine a summer without going to Brave Week.
Hey, Evyn.
Hey.
You did a beautiful job. My first question is, I would just like to know a little bit more about your friend Alex and your connection with her now. And, yeah.
Well, so the way the camp works is either, like, you can request a camper, or you can just say, hey, I'm coming, place me with somebody. And so every year I've just been like, I've asked people, or like I've just asked to be placed with somebody, because I think that the Lord can work and he can give me who I need to have that year. And so I was with Alex my first 2 years. She's crazy. She's very boy crazy. And so we always have to steer her away from the men. And and she loves Justin Bieber. She loves Baby by Justin Bieber. And we have I only ever talked to her when I'm at camp or at Brave Week. So it's like, whenever I see her, like, she finally started remembering who I was this year. And it was so exciting because I was like, Alex. She was like, Evyn! And I was like, I missed you, Alex. But yeah, so I don't know. She's just crazy, and she's always happy, and she's never sad unless she can't go see a boy. But
Okay, and also going off that, you talk a lot about Brave Week, and so just the connections and the experiences and the friendships that you've made through that, have you taken that into your everyday life?
Can you rephrase that?
Yes. Just what you've learned during that time period, how have you taken that into, like, just the mundane of life? Because I feel like camp is a place where you get to experience these really great, opportunities and make these really great friendships and connections, and just taking that into like now and just during the school year, I guess. Was that clarifying?
A little bit, yeah. So I don't know if this is going to go the same way you're thinking, but I've learned how to be a better friend because of it, and I've had to be friendly with everybody at Friends Week because you don't have a personal bubble. Brave Week. They just changed the name. I've learned how to be a friend and not to just like push people away whenever I don't want to be messed with. And like I mentioned earlier, I've learned a lot of patience through that because there was one time I had a girl, her name was Catherine. Catherine didn't speak, she only used sign language, and she didn't like me. And so she would be like signing to the one girl in our cabin, like, I hate Evyn. And it was like, golly. And so it was hard. It was like hard to learn that, like, even though like she's like not liking me in this moment, that I still need to love her. And so I've learned like love and patience, and I've also had like just some like real good friendships that I've had come out of being like other CIAs or other buddies. So yeah.
Why do you think our society needs more of a connection with the special needs community?
Because a lot of the times our society just like pushes them to a corner, and so they don't have any connection with them. And so I think if they were to like actually go out and enjoy what people with special needs have to offer, like, I think their life would be so much better, because I know mine is. But
that's good. Also, in your thesis, you talk about how society tends to walk around them like furniture. And so with this idea and this feeling that the special needs community carry, do you think that they shy away from also wanting to be part of, I guess, bigger groups? Or not bigger groups.
Wait,
like
special needs shy away? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, I would say so, because they are pushed to the corner. So it's like, oh, she has autism, I don't want to mess with her. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, because they are different, like, people just, they're like, oh, I like my comfort, I like my people, I don't want to mess with anything outside of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so I think that like I said in my thesis, that like people with disabilities feel the same as we do. We have like, they have emotion, we have emotion, like, and I think that it really does affect them negatively. Mm. Did that answer your question? I think.
Yes.
Okay.
You're doing great. Okay. Also, now talking about church community and special needs in the special needs community, do you think that having a special needs ministry is something that churches should strive for, or integrating the special needs community into like everyday service, everyday ways that they could just help out in the church community? Like, which one do you think is something that you wish the church would focus on more? Because you talked about both.
Well, I kind of think both. In my interview with Miss Tees, she was telling me about a lady named Rebecca Wall. She goes and starts special needs ministries at churches, and they have like, she was telling Miss Harper was there, so she was telling us about the like they have a buddy system to where, like, if it's somebody who like really needs that like help or like that support, they like can take them, and they like are buddy with them in the services. So they do have that like special needs ministry, I guess, but that also connects them in like a normal church service. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question. What message do you think just our special needs friends would like to tell those who are able-bodied overall? Like, what message? Do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah.
What overall message do you think the special needs community would like to tell those who are able-bodied? Which you also just talked about, but just, like, as a wrap, like what?
Probably the fact that they want love and affection and friendship as well as we do. Like, just because they're different from us doesn't mean that we should leave them out of everything.
No, that's good. Thank you.
All right. What time are we supposed to end this thing? I think I've got about 20 minutes, I think.
Oh no.
So, what's your superpower, Evyn?
Like what is it now, or what would I like to have?
What do you think it is, really?
I think that I am able to be a good listener sometimes, but also I'm able to love others well.
Okay. All right. What do you think my superpower is?
You like to put elves in people's cars that are blow up whenever you tell me there's a work truck that needs to be
Oh, good.
here to be moved.
Enjoyment.
No, I think you are able to love others well. You show others love. You're always saying hello to people and like just making sure that they know they're known.
What do you think my weakness is?
I don't
Or
know.
what's your weakness?
I don't know what is my weakness.
Spelling?
Probably.
I don't know. But I think a lot of times when we are doing these orals or when we look at things to try to fix problems, we look at extremes. And in some ways, I would say in the special needs community, some extremes cause people to be brilliant. I watched Monk the other night. Did you ever watch the show Monk?
Nope.
What?
I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Does my dad need to do better?
Yeah, he's super obsessive compulsive, and he notices every detail, so he can't sit at the table without straightening everything, you know. But that ability causes him to solve crimes and do things that normal people, quote, normal people can't do. So, is there something that you notice within the special needs community that really attracts you? That you go, man, I like it here because this is how I feel when I'm around these people?
Kind of what I've said a lot. Like, I've just been so loved on. Like, it's like, if you've never worked with the special needs community, it's a love you don't know. You're never by yourself. Mm-hmm. They're always hugging you or telling you how much they love you, or I guess I hate Evyn. But I don't know. But I think, yeah, they just show love so well, and that's what I think attracts me to them.
So I'm going to take a little different slant now. So what makes that different from normal relations with all your senior classmates here, or your family, or teams that you've been on? What do you think makes it different?
I think that they're all strangers is something, like, I don't know any of them personally until I go there.
The special needs camp. Okay.
I think that, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Anything
it-
else? Just that they're strangers?
No.
Okay.
let me think.
That's what I'm trying to get you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm thinking of a young man that worked here named Justin Battenfield. That's one of my closest friends. And his perspective was completely different than my perspective. What was important to him was completely different than what's important to me. And so can you maybe elaborate on how their perspective might change their behavior? Or can you maybe elaborate on how someone's perspective can change their behavior with any person?
Like, are you referring just like to people in general?
Anybody, any human.
I guess like I said in my paper, like whenever people talk negatively or like make fun of people, that also like their perspective of you is like lesser, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that makes you feel like sad. But also like at the same time, people like, I have a buddy named Rachel. She has Down syndrome, and she's crazy. I love her, but she like is always like telling me like how loved I am, and like I have a funny story for later, but she always is telling me how loved I am, and so that makes like me feel like better, and she sees everything with such a happy perspective versus like so many people in our society see everything with like a pessimistic standpoint.
And why do you think that is? Why do normal people, or quote us, why do we see things with such a pessimistic view, or why are we down a lot? And my buddy Justin was never down. He was just a light all the time. We need to hear those things, right?
Yeah.
Or why don't I say that to people? Or why don't you say that to people more openly? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just talking about here what it attracts us to the realness of being around people. And so if you could change one thing that you go, well, I'd like to change one thing about this whole thing, what would it be to make it better?
What's this whole thing like?
All this, we want to help the special needs community. What would you say is the one thing that as individuals we can go out there and do?
I really think just changing our perspective to like seeing them as human, because a lot of times people just see people with special needs as like they're just there, you know?
Yeah.
And they're not seen as like human.
And I think you hit it on the head. When we talk about these extremes, we either just walk around people, and I think we ought to just say people, because we're talking about you and me. We're talking about students.
Right.
We're talking about middle school students that are really weird, you know, and we're talking about seniors who are already moved on to what they're doing next. We're talking about teachers who have families that they're kind of concerned about maybe while they're walking around school, you know, and it's so easy to just kind of walk by somebody like you put in your paper like they're furniture. Mm-hmm. Then the other extreme is that we're bullying people, or we're being actually mean and evil to people, right? And so I think those two extremes, evil and then bullying, just ignoring. But I think most of us live right here in the middle somewhere, and we just don't know. We're afraid to relate, or we're not in a structure to where we're around certain people enough to get to know people. And so do you have any comment on how, like when we're in that mid-range, besides going and working at Brave Week, right, what would be some other opportunities for people to get involved and get out of their comfort zone a little bit? Do you know any other ones?
There are some around here.
Okay.
We've talked about them, but they're just gone out of my mind. I mean, even in your church, you could go and help with the special needs ministry in your church.
Yeah.
I know Mid-Cities, I was talking to Friendesk Amy, and she was telling us that, or she was telling me that their church is starting, like they're bringing in this lady to come and start up a special needs ministry in their church. And so I think that could be something that just...
I wanted to read this quote that you put in your paper because I'm not sure everybody had a chance to just kind of ponder it. And it's the C.S. Lewis quote, and he's just talking about how important human beings are. Mm-hmm. It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses. To remember that the dullest, most uninteresting person you can talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals. It is immortals whom we joke with, whom we marry, snub, exploit, immortal horrors, or everlasting splendors. Simply put, if we refuse to recognize, and then you add that at the end. So I think you hit it on the head, and it was hard for me to come up with questions about this paper because I agree with so much that you've said. But I want us to be able to walk away from this and apply it to all people, and to value people. Can you maybe elaborate on how we're disabled too? You hit that a little bit at the end of your paper.
Okay, wait, let me think.
Like how everybody's disabled?
We talked about, like, later on in life, if you develop dementia or you get Alzheimer's or whatever, at some point you're not going to be able to do the things that you used to be able to do or remember the things you used to remember. And so just remembering that, like, you're not going to be the same you are right now later on in life, and it's like that's just something I think we need to remember, is that, like, we're not always going to be 18 and in high school and being able to play basketball, right. and so to take it for granted, and we not take it for granted.
And do you think it's by design that we're also different?
Yes.
Why so?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of one way is to distinguish from others.
Yeah.
And, like, if Val and I looked the same, you wouldn't know who Val was and who I was, you know?
What about, like, spiritual giftedness? Can you name any spiritual gifts that people get? Think of any?
Like, there's, like, prophecy and...
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, there's teaching, there's encouragement, there's helps. Why do we all get these different spiritual gifts?
Because we're all different.
Yeah, and we need him, right? Yes. I need you to be encouraging to me, right? And maybe my gift is teaching, and I need to teach you something or say something that might be hard for you to hear, right? But if everybody just had the gift of encouragement, then we wouldn't get very far.
Right.
So God knows that we need all this diversity. And yet coming back to we're all made in the image of Christ, the image of God. So great stuff. You got any questions you want me to ask you before I hand it back to Ms. Harbour?
No.
You asked me to ask you softball questions back there. So.
I was scared.
You were?
Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome job. And now it's your turn to ask us questions.
Man, you're giving me the easy way out. You're not asking me any more questions? Oh, Mr. Miller took too long.
It's all right. It's good.
Okay. I'm giving you all a different question. They're not serious or they don't pertain to my thesis at all.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you some fun stuff. So, Miss Harper, since you're very musically inclined, what song would I be and why? Val, since I've spent, I'm sorry, Miss Martise, that's my bad. Since I've spent a lot of time with you in RT, what's been your favorite RT memory?
Of us two?
Of us two or just RT in general?
Okay.
And then Mr. Miller, since you've had all of us Berridges on, or since you've been on everyone's senior panel, which Berridge kid is your favorite and why?
Would you like the mic? There you go. Okay. That's a great question. So I would say I have a funny story about you first.
Oh, no.
That will answer this question. It wasn't too long ago that whenever we were talking about like the process of putting your thesis together, I'm always writing down notes.
Oh, no.
I remember saying this. But I said, so Evyn, like, what is your process like for organizing your thoughts? And you went, snazzy.
Snazzy?
You said snazzy.
Oh, okay.
So I would say my song for you is Happy, but we would replace it with Snazzy.
Aww.
But Happy too. Always.
Mr. Miller's thinking. I would say there's so many great memories. There's two that really come to mind. One, it was before we even knew that we were in the same RT group. Oh wait, no, you knew. I didn't know. And it was like when I first started to just walk around and get to know everybody and get to know just campus and stuff. And we were in Miss Gomez, or Mr. Z and I came into Miss Gomez's office, and Evyn's like sitting in the corner, and she's like, "I know you. Like, I follow you on Instagram or something like that." And I was like, "What?" And
did
so
say that.
and that was because of RT, right? Okay,
Yes.
that wasn't like really a memory, but that was like something that I just really enjoyed. And I was like, oh man, I feel so loved. Even though she doesn't know me yet. And then I would say another memory that I have is we were on our way to Whataburger, which it's a special place for lunch on a Wednesday. Whataburger, I don't know. But anyways, I was driving behind your car.
Oh no.
And Evyn always plays like really loud music.
Oh, I know where this is
the
going.
girls in the car were literally shaking the car.
Yeah, we were
Just
going like this.
It was so funny, and it was just fun to see just how you connected with everybody in the RT groups, in our RT group. I don't know, it's just like really special, and every lunch was just so fun, and like there was just never a dull conversation, so it's really hard to pick one, but that was definitely one of my favorites. Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah. Or should I keep talking? Okay.
The end of an era. So Grant is the oldest, Hagen's the middle, and Evyn's the baby. So I can't really pick the baby because everybody loves you. You know. No, if I needed somebody to yell real loud, then I know who I would choose. And the sweetest person, I know who I would choose as my favorite. But I'm not going to cop out here. All of y'all are my favorites. But because Hagen's the middle child, and I know how middle children are, I pick Hagen.
Wrong answer.
I'm sorry. No, man, I can't. I've spent more time, honestly, Evyn, with Hagen and Grant with coaching. But man, you're a joy in my eyes as I watch you go around. And I think my favorite thing about you, Evyn, is your integrity, and that you are who you are all the time. And don't stop being that way, because it's awesome. So. And thanks for a great oral today. You did good.
Thank you.
Father, we thank you for this opportunity to hear some wisdom out of Evyn Berridge, and just what's important to her. And I pray that it would continue to be. And I pray that lives would be changed through what was talked about today. We thank you for your love for us that's unconditional, and we thank you that you tell us that in your word. And we just praise you for the opportunity of being your children. And please bless the Berridge house. Bless Evyn. Let him have a great day. And we pray all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.